I want to warn everyone here, national show, national show, national show. But Sydney Second Airport is an interesting conversation because we all talk about the need for infrastructure. Why doesn't government do something? Why don't they tick off on the big projects? Well, this week, the federal government, for the 800th time, I think, regardless of which government and which political stripe, said there's definitely going to be a second airport in Sydney. It's going to go into Western Sydney, and I believe, while I support this infrastructure being built, I can't stand any sort of two-tiered system. One where the high rollers room of a casino means you can smoke inside, but if you try to smoke inside a pub, no, no, no. One that says, in this case, if you want to run an airport, it runs for 24 hours a day, but the one closer to the city where people live, that has to have a curfew. And that, in part, is what some of the local Labor MPs, including my friend Ed Hughes, are saying. But here's the front page that they copped from my mate Christopher Dorr at the Daily Telegraph, who are, of course, all in on it. I'm no fan of Emma Husick, but certainly all in on Ed Husick. And Ed Husick has been very solid on this for a very long time. And his central point is not, don't build the airport. It's just, if you're going to do it, can we please have a train? If you're going to do it, can we actually have a road that works? And if we have it, why do we have a system that's any different than the one down the street? Here's what he blew up today on Sky about.
Can I just send a message to Chris Dorr, the editor of the Daily
Sure, why don't you just look straight down camera 2 there, yeah.
Camera 2. Chris, I've for the 46 years I've been on this planet, the bulk of them I've spent in Western Sydney, grown, raised, schooled, worked, lived there, and I am not going to have the Daily Telegraph lecture me as a Western Sydney MP about what I should accept as an Eastern Sydney priority. And frankly, a lot of Western Sydney people have a lot of things they need to get fixed up, and I don't need to be hectored by the east of the city as to what apparently is going to create jobs or not.
So here's the thing, Hugh, where, again, this can very easily devolve into red team, blue team, but it's just this idea of a double standard. I can't stand it. Again, and I want to talk about it, the smoking room that's okay for the Chinese millionaires, you know, playing roulette.
Not coming anymore, are they?
Well, but versus you being able to light up in a pub.
Yeah, why is it that us in Western Sydney, we're going to have an airport? That's great. Great. We've got a problem with that. If it brings jobs, if it brings infrastructure, if it brings you know, more industry, that's brilliant. You know, as the MP, the biggest industrial estate in the country, very happy for that idea. But it comes down to quality of life, and that's what Ed is talking about there. And Ed's electorate is in the north of my electorate, and that's what it's about. It's about quality of life. So it's about the flight paths, it's about the road infrastructure, it's about how much more trucks are going to be on the roads. The fact that there's, you know, there really hasn't given a job plan. We don't really know what's happening, just lots of promises. But that's the killer. And the people in Western Sydney, in my electorate, in that way, I have yet to find someone who really has openly attacked the airport. There are small groups that do, but the reality is that they think if it gets jobs, that's great. If it gets more industry, that's great. But it's about quality of life. They want to know what the flight paths are. They want to know what the impact's going to be on their lives. And none of that information is out there. And that's the problem which we have.
Why am I wrong, Bronwyn?
Example at the moment, okay, at 6 o'clock each morning, right, I get woken up by a plane coming out of Mascot. I live at Greystanes, right, so it's a long way away from Mascot, but I hear that every morning, and it's like the thing we wake up, oh, it's a couple minutes past 6, we actually know what it is. And that happens to a lot of people on that flight path coming out in that part of Western Sydney. Now, I mentioned before how there's not been a huge amount of opposition, but until we sort these things out, it'll start growing. Correct. And that's the thing. You know, when the original flight paths were basically all over the major suburbs, you know, around Blacktown, all over my electorate at Prospect, yeah, people weren't happy about that. Then they disappeared and said, no, they're not going to do it that way. So we need to know the detail. And otherwise, more and more people will start saying, well, you're not going to tell us, you're eating us like a mushroom, we're going to basically going to oppose it.
They can take evidence from the precedent of Bankstown. Bankstown was at one stage the busiest airport in the Southern Hemisphere, and it operated at much greater hours than Kingsford Smith. But it does need to work out how it's going to be used, who's going to use it. I mean, there are slots that are not filled now at Kingsford Smith.
Well, but also